Hey, everybody. Great to see all y'all out there in Son of Sam land. We got a great one for you today. Yes, we are starting a new little series called the Apartment Letters series. Yes. So I just want to say thanks to everybody for being here today. Super looking forward to this one. In fact, I wanted to do it yesterday. I was so excited. But first, I want to welcome everybody, of course, to the reality-based Son of Sam channel. A channel where we don't insult you with tales of cults and process involvement and Manson 2. A channel where we don't obsess over the suspicious deaths over the Carr brothers, where we don't try to tell you that a cult in Untermeyer Park was involved with Son of Sam and David Berkowitz. Why? Because, well, we've debunked all that crap. And in fact, what we are doing in this endeavor is dealing with reality, the world as it actually exists. The real corporeal world that you can hold in your hand, that's actually there, that isn't a figment of all of our imaginations. And what the purpose of this series is well, we're just going to dive into the apartment letters of David Berkowitz, those crazy letters that he wrote. And of course, we're going to speculate a little bit. We're going to talk about whether these letters were real or not and all that kind of stuff. But there can be no doubt that he wrote them and that we can use them to glean insight into his personality and to the crimes. So what I envisioned here was sort of like a stripped down psychiatric Sunday with this series. There's only 42 pages of letters. We're going to each show is going to be just 10 pages, along with commentary and, of course, relating it back to the crimes. And you'll get no talk about Dionysus here. We're not going to talk about the different handwritings of the Son of Sam letters. And we're certainly not going to insult you by saying that Vale Baron Michael Charnkowski Carr worshiped the devil and all that kind of crap. It's all BS. In fact, I spoke to a guy a long time ago. This is during the height of the Son of Sam series that we were all enjoying together back in 21 and 22. This was a guy who ran for class president with Michael Carr at Rochester Institute of Technology. I think his name was Zibix. I can't quite remember his last name, but the picture's online. This guy couldn't have been more clear and concise. He said, satanic rituals, it's Mike Carr. No, that dude was just like a partier. He loved to party. He was like a real nice guy. He was totally normal. People liked him. He was a social butterfly. Never spoke once about Satanism or the occult or any of that kind of stupid claptrap that these people still continue to. I mean, listen, if you guys want to delude yourselves, that's fine. But me and my audience, we're moving on. All right, guys. So we got quite a bit to do today, and we're going to have some fun. We're going to be casual. I'm going to be taking a look at the chat, actually, for the first time. Normally, I'm engrossed in the show, but today I'll try to get to your questions. And if I'm feeling real good, maybe we'll open up the lines to callers as well. Just make sure, though, no naked ladies in the background. That happened once. That happened once on our show. It was like one of the most hilarious moments we ever had. And no, you will not be able to find that moment in our YouTube channel because I immediately had that show wiped, and it wasn't anybody in my vision. It was a caller who called in. Nice guy. I think his name was Matt. Haven't seen him in a while. Maybe he just got so embarrassed, but yeah, his wife walked in the back. We got Bush. We've got Bush. So anyway, all right. So let's just get right into it, guys. So we're talking today about the apartment letters of Disco Dave. All right. So basically, let's just see what my slideshow brings us. Yes, Netos Mas, biggest blooper. I'm sure it's not the biggest blooper in YouTube history. But listen, if that happened to me, I would be mortified. So as a courtesy, I took that entire video offline. I don't even remember what it was. It was a Manny reacts to something. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so of course, here we are seeing the young Manny, the 10-year-old Manny on his dirt bike in 1983, rolling over with glee and joy these letters that Maury tried to bullshit us into thinking that was proof of a cult. And here is the feared and hated German Shepherd. And Berkowitz, of course, looking rather nervous because he knows now that we figured him completely out. This guy was trying to troll the world. God, so dumb. All right. So, of course, the apartment of David Berkowitz. Well, here, this door here, all the way on the right end when you walk out of the elevator, on the right end of floor number 7, the top floor of what was then 35 Pine Street. This door right here was the entrance to Disco Dave's apartment. This is where the beast himself, Disco Dave Berkowitz, would go in and out of, well, in his day-to-day life, but certainly when he was going out to shoot his victims. And he would come home to this very same door. And of course, these pictures taken the night of his arrest show that open door here and the mess of the apartment that we saw when they went in. So this is the apartment, and this is the milieu in which these letters, these scribblings, these notes came out. Okay. And of course, if you walk in there and you walk even further, you see the bed on the floor, the sheets taped up over the windows. Over here, sheets taped up over the windows. The stereo system that Maury Terry said was that he gave away, right? Even a little vacuum cleaner over here. And I just noticed that there's a man's arm and hand right there. So obviously this is when the police were turning over the apartment. So we don't even really know whether Disco Dave's apartment was messy, because quite frankly, there are no pictures of it when they just walked in. This is probably post, cops turning over everything, looking under every nook and cranny. And so we really don't know for sure whether this was a messy apartment. But if you turn right from the vista that we just saw, you could witness for yourself the shitter of Disco Dave. I can't tell whether he kept his crapper in proper cleanliness. He probably did. He didn't seem to be a personally dirty person, but who knows? But this is where Disco Dave himself took his shits. And there's a weird little thing here, which I wanted to see here. What does that say? I can't quite make that out because it's pixelated on my screen. New something or other. So somebody, if you can find this in the Queen's DA, because again, all of this stuff can be easily found. I'm not like keeping and hoarding secrets. So I wonder what this says, and I'll check it out in the chat for someone who wants to go in and look. I don't know why it's pixelated here. It might not look pixelated on your screen, but it's certainly pixelated on mine. Yeah, it is. Anyway, so we'll leave that for another day. And of course, Disco Dave, here's one of his gray shirts, probably the one that he used when he shot Stacy Moskowitz. And here, of course, are the shirts again and the apartment. There's the gray shirt that he probably shot Stacy Moskowitz in. I believe this is his 3/4 inch length army fatigue jacket. I could be wrong. Okay. So Chris Banks says new star. All right, so that's interesting. I wonder what that particularly means. Carpet in the bathroom, or do my eyes deceive me? I'm watching on a phone. Well, in the old days, actually, they used to have like little carpets that went around toilets. And that's actually quite gross, because no matter how you shake, no matter how you dance, the last drop always falls in your pants. And of course, the last drop always falls on the floor and all that kind of stuff. So anybody putting carpeting around their bathtub, a la 1970s, early 1980s style, that's racist. And of course, we see here the beginnings of the wall writing, Sam Carr, my master. And you can actually see now in context how underwhelming these wall writings were really. And of course, he wrote them because of William Hirons, the lipstick killer. This was all kind of a ruse to make himself look insane. He probably did this within a short period of the arrest. Probably took him at most 20 minutes to do this, obviously in his handwriting, which we have already talked about quite extensively. So Chris Banks says they are known as as Weebats. I am offended at you calling me a wee mat hater. I am not, but I am a monster. I am the son of Sam. All right. So just more pictures. Craig Glassman worships the devil and has power over me. And of course, everyone in this guy's world worshiped the devil. This guy was talking about Michael Carr worshiping the devil as if he really knew him. John Carr worshiped the devil. In his apartment letters, we could see how he talked about Sam Carr and worshiping the devil and all this ridiculous, absolute claptrap that these morons still believe. So again, obviously in his handwriting and all that stuff. And this isn't the point of today's discussion. We're going to be looking at his writings, not his. We already did an apartment on his wall writings. And actually, I'd be curious to see this a little bit closer up. I think it says January, but again, it's a little bit pixelated. But you know, nice little calendar of two dogs. In fact, that's quite ironic. I wonder if this was staged. Anyway, my name is Craig Glassman, and I shall never let a soul rest. So, of course, he hated Craig Glassman, his downstairs neighbor. The guy played his television loud. So he was just another person on Berkowitz's shit list. I do have a copy of Glassman's ridiculous book called Off the Wall. A viewer, I'm not going to name him, but he's very close to Gary. Actually, a viewer gave me that during sort of towards the tail end of our original video series, and I scanned every page, and it's an absolute piece of crap. I mean, that book sucks. It's not even written by Glassman. It's written by another author. They talk about how Berkowitz would. Well, I'll just show you the picture. They talk about how Berkowitz would put food in this hole and eat ice cream out of this hole as if that's possible. I mean, it's totally ridiculous crap. But this is the main writing on the wall that everybody flipped out about. But then again, when you see it in context, it's very underwhelming, not that big a deal. And we have on our Facebook page, our private Facebook page, Son of Sam, Not a Cult. Who, by the way, if you want to join that Facebook page, good luck. We're not taking very many people. We're only taking kind of known entities to us, known people. And also there are questions that you have to answer if you want to join. So a lot of people have been trying to join lately, and I have to reject every one of them because nobody's answering the questions, people we don't know. So in either case, if you've been rejected, nothing personal. Oh, but on our Facebook page, Paul Hart, the great Paul Hart, realized, of course, that the people named Williams lived next door, literally next door, but right beyond this wall to Berkowitz. So Williams most likely here referred to the people just beyond this hole right here, Mr. and Mrs. Williams. There was no Mr. Williams hole at Untermeyer Park. It's another one of those urban myths. Nobody actually ever heard of that name. Whenever we would bring it up to people who knew that park backward and forward, no one ever heard of that name, Mr. Williams hole, and all that kind of stuff. So Furby, no, I did not end up interviewing Tommy Zano. What happened with Zano was that him and I were going to do a lot of work together. We had established a relationship towards the end of the Dorfman says Dorfman Insurance Agency, that calendar you showed. Don't tell that to the morons because there's a Dorfman who was related apparently to Carr. I don't even know, but according to Carl Denaro, there's a Dorfman related to the Cars. So that's going to open up a whole new can of worms. But in either case, I have no idea who Dorfman is. But Tommy, we're getting back to Tommy. So Tommy and I were in talks. We were actually thinking big. We were going to get with a producer. We were going to try to do a documentary about his story. We were going to try to write a book about his story. And then all of a sudden, Neo swoops in and says, "Oh yeah, I got Tommy. I set up a meeting with him and Carl Denaro. Oh, and by the way, you're not invited." So not only did this guy like take one of my contacts that I was working with, try to give him to a person who I considered an enemy, but then didn't even invite me and tried to shut me out to the thing. So that's why I say when Neo stabbed the series in the back, he really did stab the series in the back. And I never spoke to Tommy after that again. Bullet dodged, because we've since learned that Tommy Zano was a liar. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's told 3 different stories about that night. I believe the story he told the cops, not the story filtered through Maury Terry. Other people may disagree, and that's that. But no, we have never, ever once talked to Tommy, and Tommy wasn't happy with what Neo did either. He was like, "Who's this guy calling me? I don't even like Carl." He was telling me all sorts of bad stuff about Carl. But I just let them all hang with each other. I didn't give a shit. I just removed myself from the situation. So there you go, the story of what Neo did to the video series. All right, so let's carry on. We got a lot to do, and you guys are getting me off tangent. I said this was going to be a casual show today, but you guys are getting me very off tangent. Just don't ask what happened with Jason Goodman. another Neo mistake that caused Jason to hate my guts. He thinks I'm the worst person on earth. All I try to do is the right thing by people. All right, so the letters. So what are we talking about here? Well, Berkowitz wrote about this in his extensive letter writing campaign to Abrahamson. And here he is touching on these apartment writings that we're gonna analyze and talk about today. Now, about this advertisement and all that Klausner is supposed to have, this is what I wanted to talk to you about when I tried to phone you. So Klausner, of course, is the author of Son of Sam, a somewhat sensationalized account of the crimes, but in reality, the closest to the truth than, way closer to the truth than Maury Terry's book. So Klausner has no real secret diary. In fact, it wasn't even a diary. What I did have was approximately 20 pages of rambling notes in which I told about Sam Carr and the demons. These notes and letters, while they are authentic in one sense, are a repetition of all I told those gullible doctors anyway. So this is a strange passage. He admits that he wrote those letters. Okay, so people who were thinking that Berkowitz didn't write those letters and not in his handwriting. Here he is talking about the apartment writings, specifically saying that he wrote them, what was in them, and we know what was in them, and he was absolutely correct. So again, we're in the reality-based world here. If those of you who want to talk about how Wheat Carr wrote these, this Wheat Carr, she in the room with us now? I mean, give me a break, guys. So, but it's interesting. It says they're authentic in one sense, right? So he's saying they're authentic. Okay. So they're real, they're authentic, but it's a repetition of all that I told those gullible doctors anyway. So then this brings up, of course, were these letters truly the product of a diseased and psychotic mind, which we know he had. Anybody who goes out and shoots people in cold blood, they don't know for absolutely no reason, because they were pissed off that dogs were barking. That person is psychopathic and a monster, right? But was he like certifiably insane that those letters were real, that he actually believed this stuff? Well, he's saying here that they're authentic, but they're just a repetition of what he's implying that he BS to the gullible doctors anyway. So it doesn't really matter, though, this question, whether they were the product of his diseased mind or whether he was trying to set up a ruse, an insanity defense, because the simple fact is he wrote them. He put in very personal details in them. He put very psychotic things in them, and things which actually related back not only to the crimes that we can connect to, but also to his childhood, to his places of where he lived. And we're going to discuss all that stuff today. So we're going to only take the first 10 letters, but we're going to be going we're on a stream here, and there's all sorts of little branches and off this stream. I hope that you guys enjoy this. And again, just relax, try to open up your mind, and just enjoy what we are about to do. All right, cool. So here's our first slide. Of course, here's our first letter. I'm sorry to say that it's just a coincidence Miss Placido had come from the same neighborhood. She was not followed, though she was a chosen victim, but by one greater than me. Okay, I know right here. Oh, that's proof there's a cult. Someone else chose her. No, he's talking about the demons in his head. I mean, give me a break, guys. Come on. I am not an expert marksman as thought, because if I were, the death toll would be higher. I never walk away from the scene of the sacrifices. Well, that's not true. He walked away plenty from the scene. How did he get away? Flew. That elderly gentleman did not hear me correctly. I said, "Hi, mister." Okay, so he's talking about Voskerichian. He knew about the elderly gentleman somehow. Sal Lupo was not chosen for death, only Miss Placido. And that is reflected in his confession. No, that was Christine Freund. He said he only had one person to shoot. I do, and then this is important here, and we're going to go into greater detail here. I do not always use two hands when I fire. Sam Carr is still Prince. So there's a couple things I wanted to show here. Now, of course, here's the Breslin letter, right? One of the things that's in the Breslin letter that Berkowitz just loved to do was put these little triangles underneath the words that he forgot to put in. And this is just but one example of that right here. Okay. But this is one of like dozens of examples of that, not only in his letters and his crazy letters in his apartment, but if you look at the Abrahamson letters, there's a million of these things all over the place. Again, just more proof that he who wrote these letters, and this Berkowitz, it's in his handwriting. He admits to doing it. Again, we're synthesizing information and we're logically coming to conclusions using factual evidence that's in the real world that we can touch, that we can read, that we can actually see. Okay. We're not doing this Manson 2 claptrap anymore. This is or that because someone has the same last name as someone that somehow they're involved, right? So that's just one little Berkowitz tell. Okay, the little triangle with the additional words up top. And then there's another thing I want to show you, because this came up. Someone tried to make a debunking video about me, saying that there's this little line through here, and there's a little serif or whatever you call it, a little flourish on this they, and Berkowitz didn't write like that. Well, I will admit he didn't put lines in any of his other where I can see, but these little flourishes that I'm talking about, they're all over the letters. Look at that right there. Flourishes, right? It's another T. It's the same thing. We see it here. The T right there. We see there, though. All the T's have that flourish, that little extra mark when he writes them in capital letters. Okay. So again, look at that right there. And then look at that right there. It's the same exact thing. So that person who made that video, you may want to go back to the drawing board. It's going to take a little bit more work to debunk the stuff that we're doing over here. So now the two-handed shooting issue. Now this is important because remember, I do not always use two hands when I fire. So of course, this always brings me back to, well, Carl Denaro's book and Carl Denaro's shooting. So here's a couple passages which I want to read from The Son of Sam and Me, because they discuss this very issue. All right. Well, first of all, this shows once again that Maury was the worst friend on earth. Okay. So this is Carl Denaro desperately trying to find out who shot him, right? A noble cause, because this guy was fooled into thinking that it wasn't Berkowitz by the drunkard Maury Terry, by the user, by the not good friend, by the guy who loved to play jokes on his friends and to manipulate everyone and to bully and to abuse, right? For some reason, Carl decided that this guy was his best friend. And when pressed by Maury, he admitted that the shooter was a woman. Originally, Maury told me the shooter was known as a witch named Wendy. In occult circles, she was known as Big-Breasted Wendy. She was also a regular visitor customer at the Magical Child Occult Shop in Greenwich Village. About 5 years before Maury's death, he sent me an email saying that the woman who shot me was not Wendy, but was actually a woman named Amy. To this day, I am not sure if the woman who shot me is Wendy or Amy. Well, let me tell you something. The woman who shot you doesn't exist, Carl. The person who shot you was Disco Dave Berkowitz. Now, second of all, what's sick about this, of course, is that it's again more insight into Maury Terry's personality. Here he has a victim of David Berkowitz that Maury had to know he was lying to, right? And here he is talking about, he had to be pressed by Carl Denaro to admit that the shooter was a woman, right? Originally, Maury told me the shooter was a woman, and then 5 years before Maury's death, he sent me an email saying that the woman was not Wendy. So here Maury is playing with Carl Denaro, okay? And Carl Denaro, I guess to this day, just is made the executive decision that this was okay with him. And furthermore, he was going to defend this guy, basically into the gutter, because that's where the cult theory is right now, along with Carl Denaro. But why do we bring up this whole issue of women, right? Well, because Carl Denaro, through the machinations of Maury Terry, was convinced that a woman shot him. And why? Well, let's just read the thing. Even with a lack of eyewitnesses to the shooting, a bit of circumstantial evidence does exist. That now he's talking about why the shooter was a woman here. Okay. The shooter's aim was wild. 4 bullets were fired. 1 piece of shrapnel hit the speedometer of the Volkswagen. 1 apparently went through the back window and out the front window, blowing the windows out. The 3rd bullet hit the roof of the car, which slowed the bullet down. It eventually found its resting spot in the back of my skull. After the attack, Rosemary Volkswagen was towed to the police garage for further investigation. A week later, when NYPD returned Rosemary's car, she went to clean it out and pulled out a blanket from the rear wheel well of the Beetle, and lo and behold, a bullet fell out. She immediately gave her father, Detective Red Keenan, the bullet, and it was sent to ballistics. Not really sure which bullet determined it was a .44 caliber, that bullet or the bullet doctors took out of my skull, but regardless, it was one of them. Now, money shot. In the early 1990s, I met with Detective Joe Quirk, who worked in ballistics in the NYPD. He told me that he worked on my case, and based on his findings, he reported that it was either a 90-pound weakling or a woman who fired the shots in my attack. In the 1993 interview, when David Berkowitz admitted to Maury Terry that a woman shot me, the detective's statements were corroborated. The detective also told me during our conversation that the ballistics report he worked on was missing from the NYPD files. So he thinks it's a woman because of the wildness of the shot. Of course, his hero, the drunkard, the not good friend, Maury Terry, was strung him along basically to the end of his life, the end of Maury's life, that it was a woman. But meanwhile, in 1979, Berkowitz wrote this. The second job was the Denaro Keenan one. Both of them were sitting in a red Volkswagen and making out. Now, it was a blue Volkswagen, but so what? Under lights, you can get that wrong. Not a big deal. This was my second murder attempt with my .44. I had approached from the rear of the car, walked up to the passenger side window, and opened fire. I was more frightened than they were. Only 1 bullet struck the young man, and he really wasn't the intended target. I had fired with 1 hand and wildly. Boy, did I mess up. But really, I was very nervous. So here we have him talking about that shooting. I did it with 1 hand. And anybody who knows anything about the .44, if you shoot it with 1 hand, it's going to go all over the place. Why did I shoot with 1 hand? And when I missed, why was I frustrated, you ask? Well, the best answer that I could give is a 50-50 one. I wanted to take a life, yet I wanted to spare a life. I felt that I had to kill someone. I wanted to, and I didn't want to. I spent hundreds of dollars fixing my car up, putting it in perfect working order for this event or events. I spent a great deal of money in gas and oil. I purchased other guns before my .44 caliber revolver. A shotgun and a .45 caliber rifle already almost cost me $500. Plus, I bought ammo and cleaning material. Lastly, I spent a great many hours driving in search of victims. Moet, known to roam. No, I knew that I was going to commit these crimes that I set out to do. So, of course, here he is talking about doing it with 1 hand, shooting with 1 hand. Here in his apartment letters, he's like, I did not always use 2 hands when I fire. So seriously, and this is getting beyond my personal beef with Carl. I hope that Carl actually finds peace in these new information, that he can kind of move on in life. Because I mean, he can continue to go down the road of trying to prove there's a cult. I guarantee you on his last day on earth, he will still be trying to do that, because the whole thing is a fabrication. It's a joke. It's a mirage. It's a chimera. It's Maury's trolling on us. He fooled all of us. Okay. The issue is, what are you going to do about it? And boy, it'd be great if this guy would actually come on record and say, I was duped. That would be the most respectful thing to do at this point, not only to the memory of the other victims, but also his own self-respect. All right, the two-handed shooting issue. So we had that. Okay. All right, so now the next letters. I am the executioner for the forces of evil. I am death, and I am here to kill those that have come on to me. My body lives at 35 Pine Street in Yonkers. My heart, soul, and mind, or whatever is left of them, dwells at redacted in Yonkers. Redacted. Now, this is either going to be 18 or 22 Wicker Street, is the house of worship for Satan and his army. The people that dwell therein represent every abomination and vile thing that has ever dwelled on earth. Though they appear to be human, flesh and blood, they are truly demons of Satan. They have, under the command of their master, set up a house of sacrifice and worship in Yonkers. This house is utilized as a resting stop for other demons that are traveling the earth to do the master's bidding. It is their primary concern to have me walk as their servant in doing their work. I must kill for those who are chosen. And look at that triangle, right? Again, from the Breslin letter. The souls of the dead are then carried away by these omnipotent spirits to the house, and then we have these three periods implying that there's a continuation to this. Now, in our work, in I agree. I agree 100%. It's pathetic. So in our work, we actually got beyond these three dots, okay? Which was one of the huge things that we did in our video series. All right. Now, I dissed, of course, Neo earlier. He was responsible for the breakdown of the original series by stabbing me in the back, totally betraying the series. But he did do one good thing for our video series, which was that he introduced us to the Neto family. It would have happened regardless. I would have found them regardless, but he certainly opened that door. And we, as a Son of Sam community, should regard his one main contribution to advancing the story, the fact that we got access to the Neto family primarily because of Neo. All right. So the Neto testimony. Now, what are we talking about here? Well, I want you to again to look at this apartment letter, right? And he's talking about how the souls, right? This house is utilized as a resting stop for demons that are traveling the earth to do the master's bidding, right? The souls of the dead are carried away to these houses, and so on and so forth. So Berkowitz was like obsessed with houses, right? These 18 and 22 Wicker Street. He talked all about how they were resting stop for demons. Well, check this out, because when we interviewed the Netos, well, I want you to see what one of them had to say about this.
From what I recall, my aunt read the letter, and what the letter said was like the demons in the attic above the third floor, they would come down to have orgies with us in the basement. That's what the letter said, because at that time, the family used to get together for Thanksgiving, for December 24th, that we celebrate that. We used to have a big dinner in the basement. So our family, we have families in Elizabeth, New Jersey, that would come down. We will get together to have dinner. Mm-hmm. And that's what the letter said, that there were demons in the attic, and they would come down to the basement to have orgies with us.
It's exactly what Berkowitz wrote in his letters after.
Yes.
See, so Berkowitz was writing that. He was writing the same stuff to the Neto family in the letters. And of course here, which is, I believe in Klausner's book, is a passage which says the exact same thing. The word loosens the flood of madness. When the soul of a victim leaves the body, demons are right there. They snatch the souls and take them to the attic of 316 Warburton Avenue, or to the houses at 18 and 22 Wicker Street. They chain the souls and have sex with them forever. The demons take the victims' souls and drag them into the houses and rape them and molest them. It's messy. It's brutal. There's no sleep for the victims' souls, no resting, no peace. See, so here we are again, tying up these knots. Here in his freaking apartment letters, he's talking about the same exact stuff
From what
that
I recall,
I'm sorry,
my aunt read the letter
Teresa
and what the letter said
was talking about there, and then what's in Klausner's book. Okay, so it's like, guys, give it up already. These things are all being tied together in a nice, neat bow. Okay, and I know the cult theorist says, "See, that's proof. That's proof. It's too easy. They set it up." Well, how would Teresa know what was said in an apartment letter of David Berkowitz? Are you saying that she was involved with David Berkowitz, that she would know that letter from being in his apartment, that she was in the cult? No, he was sending letters to all these people. It was all the same sort of vibe: demons, rape, torture, basements, attics. So I suggest people watch the Neto videos, because those are incredibly important to context, especially of what was happening in Berkowitz's neighborhood. And I believe I have a playlist, the Neto series. Those were really a pièce de résistance of the video series, the previous video series. All right, so let's carry it on. So our next letter, of course, Friday, February 25th, 1977. Today is Friday, Blood Day. Today I will spill blood for the people of Redacted and Redacted, the house of Joaquin Blood and the Horror Hotel. So he's talking about 1822 Wicker Street here. My ears are ringing because the dogs are hungry and they are screaming loudly in pain. Joaquin never feeds his dogs nor his mother any food. He relies on me to hunt for him and kill his dog's food. He likes his meat fresh and he loves warm blood. Joaquin and I like to hunt for food in Queens, mostly because the hunting is good and Queens girls' meat tastes best. Maybe it's the water they drink. So his apartment letter, and we talked about this in our Borelli letter thing. Of course, it's exactly like the Borelli letter. I love to hunt, prowling the streets looking for fair game, tasty meat. The women of Queens are the prettiest of all. I must be the water they drink. I live for the hunt. My life, blood for Papa. Clearly in Berkowitz's handwriting. As you know Berkowitz's handwriting by now, you can see it as clear as day. Same exact thoughts, same exact imagery here. Water, Queens, hunting, meat. It's all in here. Again, so we're relating these apartment letters back to his crimes, his Son of Sam crimes. And it's irrelevant whether this letter or any of these letters are true, in the sense that was he really feeling this way, or was this all set up for insanity? That's a moot point. First of all, his mind thought these letters up, whether he was technically insane or not. Who thinks like this? Who would write this? I mean, you have to be sick, and absolutely totally spiritually sick in order to write this, right? So, but it's a moot point. It's irrelevant whether these are, quote, real or not, because they are real. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're here, they exist. We can actually touch them in our hands. We can print these, we can read these, we can analyze them. All right. And this was all kept from us. And who was it kept from us by? By the manipulator and the bullier and the abuser, the drunkard, the not good friend, Maury Terry. All right. My name is Samuel Carr, and my mansion is located at 316 Warburton Avenue. I thank my master for providing me with it. I, Sam Carr, am lower than the shit that comes out of my dog's asshole. I, Sam Carr, am a vile wretch, and my body smells like the vomitus from a pack of rats. I, Sam Carr, hate my neighbors, and I will kill them. I hate God so much that I fart when I hear his name. I have dedicated myself to murder, and I promise to drive all my neighbors to their death by the cruelest means. I will never let my neighbors rest, nor eat, nor live in peace. Let them kill themselves with their own hands to escape the continuous torment that I continually dish out to them from my home. Let my soul who hates one come try to murder me. There's the arrow again, right? From the Breslin letter, same thing. Let them try to murder my wife and my family. Let anyone who wishes to murder me, Samuel Carr, lay in wait outside my house with a shotgun and shoot me full of slugs. Ha ha, I cannot die. I am the all-powerful Sam. I shall tie up Frances and beat her unmercifully, then chain her up to the back of my house and let the neighbors hear her howl in pain. I, Sam Carr, am a cruel, mean, deadly murderer, and I'm a bad motherfucking dude. Yeah. So again, I just wanted to read that. I mean, it's just crazy. We don't have to, we can, this tying up to the back of the house, we can relate that back to the Borelli letter, right? Chaining up to the back of the house. One, that's in the Borelli letter, back of the house, chaining up. Okay, but what I wanted to show again here was, again, the person who made the video about how I'm wrong because Berkowitz didn't ever put these little flourishes on here. Again, this person was correct. There's no crossing in any of Berkowitz's known writings, but so what? He wrote honor with an OU. He probably did this, with that European way, but that flourish is there, that of the T. We can see it on other letters here. Right, that flourish kind of there, and so on and so forth. The S is very formal looking and flourishy, and so on and so forth. Uh-oh. How involved was the process church of the final judgment with the murder? Okay. I have to collect myself here. I have to breathe deeply and just let this one roll off my back. All right, so let's carry on. The time has come, and the time is now. I cannot go on like this, disobeying the calling of my master. Day and night with the howling of the demon dogs chanting the death call that summons me to kill, to sacrifice for the master whom in all honesty I despise. It took me all this time to realize who I am and what I have come here to earth for. I had premonitions of my destiny since childhood, but I was afraid of what I saw. Through the years, I have tried to fight back against my brethren, the children of Antichrist. However, Satan is much stronger than me, more determined and perhaps more desperate. How can I disobey my own father? I have disobeyed my master quite often, trying to be a good person, trying to love people, to make friends, to help someone who needs me for nice things. I wanted to be a good man, but in reality, this is not possible, since in my soul, I am thoroughly evil. Deliver me the souls of the chosen to die, commands the demons of 2150 Holland Avenue. The demon dogs cry out in the alleyway, David, David, kill someone today for us. Bring us their blood and soul so that we may dine and bathe in their death. Although my mission is comparatively minor, it has taken Jack Cassara and Satan over 22 years to form me into the soldier servant that they so desire. So it's like totally ridiculous. Again, there's those flourishes, right? The flourish there, that kind of formal T. We see it, the D here, and so on and so forth. But this is an interesting letter because, first of all, we have the term 22, right? And then the Breslin letter, the 22 disciples of hell. We have here him saying that it was Jack Cassara and Satan who turned him into the soldier and servant, right? Why didn't Maury add that in the book, right? He made it seem like it was the process, right? But what's also interesting in here is that we have his prior address where he talked about Holland Avenue. And we'll get that into a second. There's something I want to talk about here that just came up in the Killer Tape podcast. So he's talking about he wanted to be a good person, to make friends, to help someone who needs me for nice things. I wanted to be a good man. If you guys listen to the latest Killer Tape podcast, He talks about how on the night of the shooting of Christine Freund, he came across another group of people that he was thinking of shooting, and as he was going up to them with his gun, they were in a car. It was a guy and two girls. The guy comes up and says, "Hey, can you help us? We're stuck in the snow. Can you help us get out?" And like something switched into his head, and he just totally. By the way, Romeo didn't need to be thrown out. He didn't show any troll like behavior. He was just asking a question. He could have been a newbie. So I don't know. Maybe get him back in here. Let's give him a shot. So what were we saying? So all right. So he gives this testimony in the Killer Tape podcast about how he helped them and he put the gun away, and all of a sudden he turned into the nice David Berkowitz persona. And we know that persona of his is true, right? Because we also have the testimony of Ed Davis's uncle in that famous interview that's now offline that we did with Ed and his friend Dave about Ace the Hinge Brown, about how Ed's uncle got a note on his car saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I dented you. Here's my number. I'll make it good. David Berkowitz, apartment 7E with the telephone number," right? And so on and so forth. So Berkowitz did have this weird dichotomy where he was going out and shooting people, and then, well, he also wanted to help people. So this is all true in here, right? And we could, even in his crazy apartment writings, we can glean some things about his personality that are actually real in the real world. Now, having said that, I don't want to second guess my friends on the Killer Tape podcast, but I went back to the weather reports that night of the Christine Freund shooting, and there was no reports of snow on the ground. Now it says snowy weather in the Ultimate Evil, so we do have that, but the actual weather reports from that era, and you can go January 30th, 1977. You can go and do the research yourself. There was no snowstorm that night. There should have been no cars stuck in the snow that night. But that's a little wild card. So was that story that Berkowitz told to Jack Jones actually true? If it was true, did it happen the same night as the Freund shooting? It's something that I probably would have vetted a little bit more before I put that out into the public, because it's just something that people can then use to discount what you're doing. But having said that, you guys know how I feel about Killer Tape. I believe that they are, besides our video series, the most important work on Son of Sam that has actually ever come out, because we're hearing tapes from this guy's own mouth, that words from his own mouth on tape that we've just never heard before. And once again, they are totally corroborating all the work that we've done. So Lorenzo's in the chat. Let's see what he says here. "I believe that the worst thing that happened to DB was joining that Reborn Christian Church. He became a zealot, and his writings are exactly." And if you go to his letters to Abrahamson, right, it's filled with talking about his experience as a born again, and how it ultimately wasn't good for him, and all that kind of stuff. So once again, Lorenzo's insight, very, very important, and we are super happy this guy's on our team. Okay. So anyway, the Demon Dogs of 2150. Now, here we go, right? So in his letters to Abrahamson, he talks about these people again. "This particular family lived in the basement of 2150 Holland Avenue. These were the family members of the building superintendents. These people owned 3 Doberman Pinschers. These 3 dogs roamed freely about in the rear courtyard of 2150 Holland Avenue. These 3 animals barked constantly. The janitor let these dogs out before 7 o'clock in the morning. Once these dogs went out, they started to bark. Naturally, these dogs and the family who owned them were the objects of my hate and wrath. These dogs were as noisy as Sam Carr's creature, Pet. They barked constantly, and they caused me much hardship. Yes, my building was 2161 Barnes Avenue, but 2150 Holland was opposite me via the backyard. My apartment was 5E, not 5J. 5E faced the rear. If you could get into apartment 5E, then you will see that my windows faced the yard in which those 3 dogs roamed. I don't know where you got 5J from. I lived at 2161 Barnes Avenue. The dogs were in the rear of 2150 Holland Avenue. And of course, he even went so far as to draw a map. Right? So we have that map and so on and so forth. And and then of course, here we have on Google Earth, let me just get to it here. So this is the entirety of the Bronx right here. Okay, the Bronx goes from here. This is the northernmost reaches of the Bronx. Actually, wait a second. I might be wrong about that. Nope, I'm wrong about that. This is the northernmost region of the Bronx right here. Okay, and it goes all the way here and so on and so forth. And so Co-op City, where he grew up, was over in this area here. Okay. And 2150 Holland Avenue is right here. And so let me just put it so the same way he had his map, and it's the exact same thing. 2150 Holland Avenue is here. 2161 Barnes Avenue is here. And the dogs must have been in these rear yards back here. Okay, so he lived in this apartment building, and he lived in the back somewhere, probably right around here. Let's actually go and see the map again. Share screen window. Yeah, so it's basically the same thing. A little bit out of scale, but the same exact thing. 2160 Barnes area, and then this is the dogs area. So again, he was writing about real things. So we could really have that debate. Were these apartment letters, like, were they him feigning insanity? Was this really him insane? It ultimately doesn't matter because he did all the shootings. There was no cult. Maury totally manipulated all this evidence to juice it into his own pre-crafted narrative. It's obvious. So anyway, we're sort of reaching the end here of our show. We just have one more letter to go. And again, I'm only taking this in bite-sized chunks, 10 letters per show. We've already shown 10 pages per show. We've already shown 8 of those pages. So these are the last one. How many people Sam and John Carr may have killed may never be known. Their bodies will never be found. I know at least 50 people whom they have done in. A few of them are buried in the wooded area in the rear of 316 Warburton Avenue. And of course, that's exactly from the Borelli letter. Behind our house, some rest, mostly young, raped and slaughtered, their blood drained, just bones now. And of course, this could show you, especially to the morons out there. He's talking about Sam Carr and John killing 50 people. The bodies will never be found. They buried 50 people. Some of them are in the backyard of their house. I mean, give me a break, guys. We still think that John Wheaties Carr, we still think that this guy was involved. The hell out of here. So anyway, that was it for today's letters. Let's see what some of you guys have to say. So DB was not sane. That doesn't mean he didn't realize what he was doing was wrong. That's the only defense for an insanity in court. The suspect cannot realize his actions were wrong. Yeah, I agree. I think Berkowitz knew quite well that his actions were completely wrong. He was writing about how wrong they were. He's even writing in his letters here, exactly proving Mike's point that he knew he was doing wrong, because here he is saying that he was trying to be good, right? He wanted to be good. He wanted to be a good man. He wanted to do that, but it wasn't possible. So he knew he was bad. So he knew between right and wrong, proven right here. Okay, this is the beautiful thing about having an intelligent audience, coupled with the fact that we have these wonderful pieces of evidence that we can then relate back to. See, this is how it's done, folks. PhD level course in how to actually do true crime research. Okay, so let's see. Let me see if there's ever any other. Yo, Moet, her aunt lives on Holland Avenue. It's actually a nice area over there. Gary, of course, lived in walking distance, 2150. And that's pretty much it. I'm going to put it in the chat here if anyone wants to call in. If anyone wants to call in, feel free. Because again, this is just a very chill podcast today. I got what I needed to do done, and so we're just seeing what you guys have to say. And so Mike is saying that's all that matters in court. Most people who do crime have some sort of psychosis, not a defense. Exactly. All right, so we'll just wait and see a minute or two if anyone wants to call in. In the meantime, yeah, it's very, very important, I believe, for Son of Sam researchers out there to do what we're doing here, which is just read these letters, analyze them, try to synthesize, try to connect them to the crimes, try to connect them to his apartment, his letters to Abrahamson, because you will see remarkable consistency, even in the crazy writings of these apartment letters. You see that you see a consistency there, even with the Abrahamson stuff. The shooting with one hand issue, the wanting to be good issue, writing about 2150 Holland Avenue and all that kind of stuff. So these apartment letters, and this is why I wanted to give them their own series, where we're not trying to like relate them to one specific thing, but we're just trying to put them in context of the entire crime spree. I think that this is an important thing to do. So I'm going to set up our next show for fairly soon, because I enjoy doing this. And so we don't have anybody calling in, which is fine. I don't expect people to do that. I'm just looking again at the chat, see if there's anything I forgot. Did we get that guy back who we kicked out? I just get so frustrated when people come to me with this cult stuff, because at this point it's unseemly. Okay, anyway, I don't see anything. So all right, guys, well, listen, hey, thanks a lot for joining me today. Oh, good. Ruby says we're back. So just an apology to that guy. I mean, he may end up being a troll, we don't know, but right now he's innocent until proven guilty. So so our apologies to whoever the hell that was. I forget his name at this point. Nixon something or other. Apologies straight from the top. All right, so that's basically it. I don't think we have anything left to do today. No shows in the pipeline for a little while. However, we are working on some stuff for you. We're working on a blockbuster right now about the Freund case, because I'm going there, right? I mean, there's no point in talking about Donna Lauria and Valentina Suriani, because even the cult theorists agree, as if we need their agreement at this point, that Berkowitz did those, because he told Maury that he did those. So it's the other shootings, the Lomino Demasi, Brooklyn, which are controversial, right? Well, they're not really controversial once you read the actual police reports and then compare it to what Maury wrote in his book. But we're taking on Freund next. I got John Catalano on with me on that, and so we're prepping that show now. And what I do almost every day is I try to go into the Queen's DA reports and try to find other things that we can do shows about. And I think we still got quite a bit to do. And we're just going to keep on having fun, keep on hammering home the fact that Disco Dave was the sole killer in the Son of Sam spree, and that there was no cult. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.